Welcome y'all. It's Daniel coming back at y'all once again on a bright rainy day. But you know what? That rain ain't gonna stop us. Today we're gonna be working on this table here. I'm gonna go ahead and be refinishing this today. We're gonna go ahead and start off by sanding this table down, and then we're gonna go ahead and apply a stain and a finish. And today we're gonna be using all of these sandpapers. We have starting off with 60 grit, 80 grit, 120, 150, 220, and 400 grit. Now this is a bit of overkill. You don't need this many sandpapers. I could probably do this job with just 3, but I'm very meticulous. I'm passionate about my work, so we're gonna go ahead and do all this sandpaper. So it's raining pretty good out here. Right as I started sanding, it started coming down pretty hard. There's water everywhere, but that's all right. As soon as I finish sanding this, it's going straight inside, so I'm not too worried about the humidity, about the wood soaking up any humidity. I'm nice and dry. So anyways, I got my drill here. We're gonna go ahead and start taking out these screws so we could pull the legs off. I sanded it down super fine, and next step I'm going to go ahead and wipe it down, take all the sawdust off, or as much as I can off. All of it won't come off, but as long as we can get the majority off, that's all that matters. Alright, and the next step here is we're going to go ahead and wipe it down with the tack cloth. And now that that's done, you can see all the dirt we picked up. The napkin got the majority of it, but there's still a little bit of fine bits that the tack cloth picked up. Now I can get my gloves. We're going to go ahead and start the staining process. Now, there are always 1,000 ways to skin a cat. There's several ways you can apply your stain onto your wood. But what I like to do is I like to get these super heavy duty napkins from the auto store. Fold it up real nice like. And now we're gonna stain it with the napkin. So I'm just gonna get the tip like that, tip wet. And look at that. Look how beautiful that looks. All right, so it did indeed stop raining out here. I've been out here a couple hours, maybe 3-4 hours, not exactly sure, but we just finished the staining and it looks beautiful.
At this point in the project, I'm applying my first coat of polyurethane, and I'm applying it super thin so that it dries really quickly and I can apply the second coat right away. I apply a total of 3 coats, but here on the final coat, you can see I apply it much thicker than the previous coats, which turned out to be a huge mistake because if you look at the bottom right hand corner in the reflection of the light, you can see the wood is soaking up a ton of material and creating these little divots or sinkholes.
All right, so we're back to this project. It's a couple days later. This has all dried out. We're getting ready to sand it down. When I had applied the previous coat, I'm not really sure if you could see it in the camera, but the wood was soaking up a lot of product despite me putting 3 thin coats on before layering on the thin coat. You could see in the reflection all the little divots they had created. So putting on a thick layer was a huge mistake. If I had known this was going to happen, I would have either put on a few more thin layers or I would have used some kind of a wood filler. But you know, it's not a big deal. Trial and error, things happen. I'm gonna go ahead and get the sander. I have some 120 grit sandpaper on here and I'm gonna try to sand it back down as smooth as I possibly can. Here I pulled out the polyurethane. I ran out of cups, so I decided to use this tea container. Polyurethane actually kind of looks like tea, but I'm gonna go ahead and thin this down with mineral spirits and we're gonna apply a coat.
Now, I didn't record the step that I did before you see what I'm doing here, but what I did was I applied a flood coat in an attempt to fill in all those little divots, which did work, but I messed that up again because I had put the table on a slant and it created a huge drip edge, so I had to end up sanding it down all over again, and here I am applying it yet again.
We went ahead and finished up this table once again. I think it finally looks about what I want it to look like. It's pretty smooth. It's not perfect. There's still some very minor imperfections, but it still looks pretty damn good. So all there is to do next is finish up the legs. We're gonna go ahead and stain these, and I'm not gonna put as many coats on these as I did on that. So I'm just gonna put a couple thin layers on this, and then I'm gonna call it, because I've put way too much work into this project. So I need to move on to the next project. So let's go ahead and finish this up and put it back together.
And now comes the staining process. This is one of my favorite parts because it looks so satisfying when you watch it. What I'm doing is I'm just applying a super thick layer, and you're letting that sit for like a minute or two to let it soak into the wood. The longer you let it sit, the darker it's going to come out. And then you wipe it back off with a towel or a rag. I'm just using some thick towels I got from the auto store. And man, do those legs come out looking good.
Alright, so we got ourselves a 50-50 mixture of mineral spirits and polyurethane, and we're going to go ahead and apply our poly. Now the first coat here is going to be super thin so that we can get as much of it to soak into the wood as possible. And I'm just going to go ahead and apply that. Roll. The sponge is a little bit hard because I used it earlier, but that's alright. Because this is just the first layer anyway, it just needs to soak in. That's all we need. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. It's the very next day, and these are looking beautiful. I went ahead and put a nice finish on them last night, and check that out guys. All we gotta do now is flip them around and finish the other side, and we are done with these. Alright, and we're back here. We have the legs pretty much put together. Here's the tabletop, ready to be thrown on the top. So we're gonna go ahead and assemble this thing, put it all together.
And finally, we get to assemble the table. However, you may think that after assembly, we are finally done, but I wanted to take it a couple steps further just to make this table a little bit nicer. Unfortunately, I accidentally deleted the footage to this next part, so I'm just going to show you guys the final result and explain to you what I did. After this, I took it back outside and I buffed and polished the tabletop using Meguiar's Ultimate Compound, which is a trick I learned from the Auto Shop channels on YouTube. So a big thank you to those guys for the super helpful tip. To do this, all I did was sand the tabletop starting from 600 grit, and I worked all the way up to 2000 grit. Once the sanding of the finish was completed, I used my drill with a buffing attachment and applied Meguiar's Ultimate Compound to get out that 2000 grit. Also, I'd like to know, if you're attempting to buff and polish polyurethane like I am, you're going to need a powerful buffing tool to fully remove all the scratches from sanding, because polyurethane is a super hard finish and a regular cheap buffer may not cut it. After this, I followed up with Meguiar's Swirl Remover to refine the shine even further to this beautiful finish you see before you. Once all that was said and done, I also purchased some threaded inserts and threaded them into the table and bolted the tops to the legs, so now not only is the table super sturdy, but it's also super easy to disassemble and reassemble.
Shit. Well, thank you guys for watching my video. If you guys liked what you saw, don't forget to smash that like button, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And subscribe to stay tuned in and see what we got in store for the next video. I'll give you guys a little hint. It's this big log right here.